Hello and welcome to the Salt City Gamescast. This is episode 143. My name is Nick Dennis, and across from me, Jared.
Hello.
We are...
What's up, man?
not a lot. It is a Saturday evening.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the thick of it. We've I don't know if we're going to have a fruit fly situation. I just want to call that out because we work next to a bakery.
Yeah.
And the baker, who also is my wife, hasn't done the dishes.
Would it be funnier if the baker was not your wife?
Probably, because then we could really complain. We could be like, what the fuck, the bakery.
Fucking Luigi needs to get his shit in order, man.
Come on, the croissants are good, but the shit, it's just not worth it. It's not worth it.
That's like one of those weird points of information that most people have where you're like, I had no idea that was a thing. Yours is that you outsource your bakery, your garage to a random man that bakes goods.
Probably make a lot of money doing that. That's probably a good, good business model. I'm dipping my toe. I'm not fully ready for the fall cocktail.
Mm-hmm.
I started looking stuff up, and I just wasn't quite ready. But I think maybe this is heading that way, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, I'm excited. I like this time of year. I hate winter, but this time of year it's definitely nice. I enjoy it, so I'm having a good time so far. I'm going golfing tomorrow. It's gonna be lovely weather here in Utah right now, so can't beat it. And yeah, this thing I would not associate it with the fall necessarily. Also, the sugar rim is not doing it for me.
It's not it. I was wondering because you're not a sweet guy, you're a citrus guy.
100%.
Well, maybe once you take a few drinks, you'll cut through the sugar bar.
You really fucking went all out on it, man.
I'm not an expert at the sugar situation.
I think you did a good job. I think you did a good job for sure.
What we've got is a sidecar, and this is cognac, lemon juice, and Cointreau, which is like an orange liqueur.
Mm-hmm.
Fancy triple sec, I guess. I
Yeah.
would not make this with triple sec. Triple sec is pretty rough. Yeah, I don't hate this. I don't know. I might be with you that I don't know if the sugar is needed, or maybe lighter sugar, maybe not so aggressive. But when I was Googling it and researching it, a lot of people were like, hey, you need that sugar to cut through the citrus.
No, you don't.
And I was like, well, this guy seems smart. This is, Dickwad's 2022 here. He knows a lot about it. So this is, I don't know.
Dude, I don't know. I mean, I'm on the fence with rimming your glass in general.
Salt, you do margarita, you want salt?
It depends. I will say that I really do. I had one of these in Hawaii, a margarita with tahini around the rim.
Mm-hmm.
You know what that is? And that is a nice little kick. I think hillbillies also put it on the rim of their beers. Hillbillies and Mexicans put it on the rim of their beers. And that's also pretty fucking good. I fuck with that. There's actually the bodega, the bar. You can get cheap tecates there.
Is that the beer salt? Sorry, I'm still. I knew a guy that had shit that he put on his beer, on his beer. It's like beer
Well,
salt.
there's beer salt, but tahini in particular is
I know that's different.
Yeah.
The hillbilly remark, I swear, this.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
He had this thing. He's like, yeah, I put this on all my beers. You do? Okay.
But yeah, bodega downtown Salt Lake City, which is also the rest is downstairs, which is a speakeasy. You can get cheap ass tecate there, and they put tahini on the rim, a little bit of lime. It's good shit. And they're I don't know, they might have raised prices with this economy, but back in the day you could get them for $2 fucking.
It's okay.
There would be times because it's a speakeasy, so most people, and the bodega is a very small bar. So you walk in, if you didn't know that the rest was below it, you'd be like, how is this a place? But I used to go there every so often and just stay up in the bodega and not go down into the rest. And I think most people are that work there would be like, are you gonna go down? And I'm like, nah, I'm just gonna stay up here and drink fucking $2 beers for a few hours. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, what I'll say about this is I don't think I'm gonna be sitting around making sidecars very often. I think I do I've made a few cocktails with cognac at this point. I just finished the bottle, so it's maybe more than a few. But I think I'm into cocktails that use cognac. I like what it adds to than a cocktail as opposed to, I mean, I still like whiskey ones, but maybe I like it a little more. Maybe. I mean, I'll keep dabbling, obviously, forever.
Yeah, you're not gonna stop.
No, it's not going to.
This is not a phase that Nick is going through, everyone.
No, I'm just hoping I win the lottery and then I can open up a tiny little hallway bar.
Yeah.
That's open like 2 days a week.
Yeah.
So obviously money wouldn't be the goal. It would just be like.
God, that'd be sweet.
Yeah.
I was just hanging out there all the time.
Yeah. The other problem is I would only allow like 7 people in. I don't know all of them. It'd be fine.
Why are you always here, man? I know the fucking owner, alright?
Yeah, I don't know. So I did some good community service today. So my daughter goes to nature school,
Yeah.
which I think we've talked about a little bit. They just go wandering around in the woods and hikes and do crafts and stuff. She's 4, so it's not kindergarten yet, but the school, it's co-op, so like occasionally I'll volunteer at school and you'll go for a day, and then occasionally they do these service project things where they go in and just clean up an area or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Giving back to the world. And last year, my wife did it, and I did not. And she went, and they went to this park, and they encountered a bunch of abandoned homeless encampments, and they cleaned it up. And like there were needles and shit, and
Nothing like
and-
cleaning up syringes for your 4-year-old.
and it was like a traumatizing experience, like for everyone.
100%.
And Annie's like, "You're going next year." And I'm like, "Absolutely." I'll buckle up. I got a year to prep. And this year we went to Neff's Canyon, and I essentially went on a really nice walk in the woods. there was almost everyone's bag was empty because it's just a nice little walk up there, and the leaves are falling. And after like 30 minutes, I had a piece of plastic that was about 2 by 2, and I'd just been wandering around on the path. And I was just like, man, my wife's really not going to be happy about this. She's not going to be happy about this at all. And that is the story for pretty much everyone. They got nothing. But if you're an alcoholic, you know how to find where the kids have their booze, right? And I walked back to the car,
Yeah.
and I was like, huh. Because everyone was like, we're going to find the beer that kids are, going up into this easy trail to get to drink, and the high school kids, and find anything. And I was like, well, we all went up the main trail, and that's the problem. So I looked up this path, and I just like, I'm going to go up there, and I bushwhacked, and I fucking found it. So I bushwhacked up this hill. I'm like covered in burrs and allergens. And I find like 9 beers. So success. The whole day wasn't like a lost cause. And then I found a swing that someone had made, like a piece of wood and some wire.
Okay.
It's like nothing, right? And there are multiple signs posted around this swing. This is from the Forest Service, which I don't know how they found it, because I had to like search for this. Multiple signs from the Forest Service they're saying, remove this swing, we're going to confiscate it in 7 days. And they haven't confiscated it. They started putting signs in May. And I'm just like, stick the fucking swing. What is going on here?
Why are we giving fucking heads up and notice for the swing?
I'm really confused about it, because I'm just like, 1, it's a swing. I don't know that we need to confiscate it. And 2, whoever printed the sign, which has the date printed on it, so it seems like they saw the swing. Went to the office, printed a sign saying we're going to remove it, traveled back, hung these signs, which I took down and put in my garbage bag, FYI. But
Good for you.
I was just like, what the fuck are we doing? Also, it's a swing. It's a piece of wood, which basically belongs here, and some wire. Like, what are we? Anyway.
It's like calling down to the office. Karen, what's our policy on swings? We're strictly no swings here? Okay.
Like, we're not talking this, like, the branch it was attached to was only 8 feet off the ground. I just couldn't even believe that anyone would be like, we got a situation in Neff's Canyon. we got a situation we got to deal with.
Rogue swings.
Like,
Also, who wants to fucking drink beers and swing? Like, that, especially if you're uninitiated teenager drinking in the woods. that is a recipe for puking on your girlfriend on the way down. You just fucking drink a bunch of beers, shotgun some beers, maybe a couple of White Claws, and then do some swinging. Like, that seems like a bad idea.
I don't know. They're in high school. They need something to do. There wasn't a lot of places to sit.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to swing. It was a pretty good swing.
Did you actually?
No.
You should have taken some pictures of yourself on the swing. We'll like post it on like Utah Parks and Recs fucking social media. Like, will never take me down.
So anyway, but my wife was like, well, how was it? And I was like, well, I should have, if I would have brought a rake, there were plenty of leaves to clean up. There was a lot of leaves, so they're not.
That's incredible.
I dodged a bullet, and
I'm sure your wife was very happy about that.
yeah, no, she's kind of ticked off. And I don't think we ever do it again, because next year she goes to kindergarten. So
Nature school's gonna be over.
I mean, when she did the thing where they had to go get the needles, I was like, I don't really think you should have done that. I don't really, like, for a school community project, if there's like a shirt and stuff, but as soon as it's just like, I'm not fucking out here to touch any of the paraphernalia, like, call the local authorities.
Yeah, it's pretty dangerous and problematic. You know, we're lucky in Salt Lake City. It's not nearly as bad as some other cities. You know, you go to like San Francisco, for instance, and it's just like, oh, they're just everywhere. You walk, it's just fucking needles all over the place, and I don't care how often you see it. Like, there's something about it that's just it's never okay. Like, it never feels good to see it. It just immediately grosses me out. It's like and you know, like, obviously fears of like stepping on one or something like that, dude.
It's not good.
Yeah.
I haven't been to San Francisco for a while, so I haven't seen the current situation.
Three times ago when I was in San Francisco, I went to this big ass park there. I can't remember the name of the park, but it's like one of the larger parks, and it's a gorgeous place. But while we were there was like a drum circle, which you see at the park close to your house, but it's usually just like stoners smoking weed, and it's like
exclusively.
Yeah, just smoking weed. This was like a heroin.
Usually me drinking Cabernet.
Yeah. This drum circle, they had taken it to the next level, and they were straight up fucking intravenously injecting heroin in this drum circle. Oh. And as we walked by, one guy was like shooting up, and he just pulled it out of his arm, took like the fucking belt off of his arm, and just threw it in the grass in the park.
What the hell?
And like, you just don't get over that. That's just like, you look around and you say, man, this is a pretty incredible place, but something is clearly very wrong with this situation.
We need some shark containers to start. Like,
seriously, man, it's fucking grim, dude. It's fucking grim. So.
Oh well, we are also a video game podcast here, so we do occasionally talk about those, and there's some big ones, I think. Let's start with Zelda.
Okay, Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom.
Echoes of Wisdom. This is a little bit of a throwback. Yeah. Well, it's just they're top down, half 2D, 3D.
Yeah, definitely aesthetically a throwback.
What do they call that perspective where it's from the top, but it's got some depth, right? It's not fully, it's not fully 2D.
Like isometric view. You can make it so it's completely top down by clicking in the left stick on the controller, which is a nice inclusion, but I literally never had to use it. And I put a good amount of time into this game. I'm almost done with it.
I have not. I think I maybe an hour and a half. I have not even gotten to Hyrule Castle, and that's what I was actually hoping to get to for performance reasons, but I did not. So you're gonna I'll kind of let you lead with what this thing is and where it's going.
So right out of the gate, this is the one thing that I will say before we get into the game, is this game has got some performance issues. They seem to be limited to the most egregious ones are limited to like the first few hours of the game. I've noticed it runs a little bit better the later in the game that you get. But
any reason?
Well, yeah.
So in the world, are you just like, well, that makes sense?
Well, there's particular reasons why, as far as I understand, because I did some reading on it, and apparently it's the way that the game renders assets. So even apparently, like the game is loading assets that are off screen during, the moments when you can't actually see whatever object it is, which is slowing things down for the Switch's aging hardware.
It's
So
working ahead.
correct.
Which is across every game, probably.
Yeah, for sure. But it's particularly problematic here. Just because the Switch is a dated console. And so in a perfect world, perfect scenario, if Nintendo didn't have to answer to shareholders, they should have fucking sat on this thing and released it with Switch 2. That's my thought process, because the game would have done incredibly well for them. And if it ran a little bit better, there would be no negatives for me with this thing, because everything else is great.
And maybe 2 years ago that was the plan.
Possibly.
Because potentially the Switch 2 internally, they never gained it, right? So it's not a delay, but in the back end, potentially a lot of rumors were that the Switch 2 was supposed to be here this year. And if that was the case, then you could see how this would have been on that thing. And they were like, oh, we got to switch gears.
Yeah, so pretty disappointing from that perspective. Thankfully, this game does not require a lot of precise movements. There are a handful of situations during your playthrough where you're gonna have to be a little bit precise, and in those situations, I wanted to pull my fucking hair out because it just kind of chugs and lags. I don't think that it's too bad of a frame rate dip, but I think that this is probably teetering around 30 frames a second regularly, and then it will drop down into the 15 to 20 range at certain points in time.
Am I wrong that I saw that it ran at 60 and that's the problem? Is that
Maybe it does run at
is that it's dipping from 60 and I could be wrong, but I saw some things where we were like, they should have capped this at 30, and then the dips would have been a lot less notable.
If that is the case, yeah, I totally agree with that, because it's a noticeable dip. It just kind of chugs. Oftentimes, the most severe frame rate dips are going to take place in the open world where you're traveling from one destination to the next. Not so much in dungeons and things like that. You don't see it as much, but there are a couple of instances that I have had where it's just not quite up to snuff. The remake of Link's Awakening that came out a couple of years ago also had these issues, and it's the same engine as far as I understand. So really frustrating, especially for Nintendo, where for a long period of time, Nintendo was that was what you could kind of count on with Nintendo games, was this certain level of polish and quality that kind of elevated their games above the rest of their competition. It's not really that way anymore. And it's just frustrating because it's the Switch, man. It's the hardware just is old and it just can't do it anymore.
I kind of want to question if they are known for that.
They used to be known for that, absolutely.
Solid frame rates?
For sure. Well, not necessarily solid. I'm not saying they were known for 60 frames per second, smooth gameplay. But you can look at their backlog catalog of games, and a lot of them ran at pretty good frame rates and acceptable frame rates, usually around 30 frames a second, and just had a level of polish that you don't really see as much anymore with their first-party titles.
The polish I agree with, but I feel like a lot of polish is still there. But I'm kind of differentiating polish from technical performance, in this case, just frames per second. Because when I think back, I'm telling you, that in '64, those things, it wasn't there. Because Mario 64 is an incredible game. I absolutely loved it. That game is not an FPS thing to hold up. The frames per second within that game are not there. I don't believe Pilot Wings were. I think Pilot Wings has some egregious things that happen in that game.
True.
So then I'm just working forward. I didn't have a GameCube, so I can't speak to that.
Pretty good there.
And then I didn't play through. I've only barely touched the Galaxies. Odyssey, I did not ever think about frames per second. So I'll say that. When I played Odyssey, I never felt like it was not performing. But then, Odyssey Link's Awakening, we talked about it when it came out a year or so ago.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I just wanted to get that out of the way, out the gate, because the rest of this conversation is going to be very positive.
And it's just screams. I'm just like done playing with this console. Like I just don't want to touch this console. I want the new one desperately. I desperately want the new one, and it was spring and not next fall.
I'm with you, but I still use my Switch regularly. You know what I mean? And
at all costs.
I like the form factor way more than the Steam Deck. The weight is much better in my opinion.
You still using the Ori?
The Switch Pad Pros. You have some on yours right now. I have downsized to the smaller version. They made it like an even smaller version of that, and it's fucking sweet.
Because those are pretty.
They're pretty. I like those controllers quite a bit, but once I switch over to the smaller form factor, I wouldn't go back to that.
I think I bought those when my wife got into started. She used to play games, and it was years back.
Yeah.
And she just like got obsessed for literally spent 3 weeks playing nothing but started when I came to her. She was like, "You're the best husband that's ever husband." And then she finished started and said, "I hate games with her playing again." It's like, well, clearly you like this one, and she refuses to even talk positively about starting. But anyway,
I also just a little side here. There were some leaks recently out of like a Chinese outlet that supposedly showed off what the Switch 2 looks like. And surprise, surprise, it looks virtually identical to the current hardware, which is not like surprising to me. And I don't really need anything that's like crazy, drastically different. But one thing that I really fucking grinded my gears was there was, in this mock-up, there was shells for the new Joy-Cons. And they're still sticking with the goddamn buttons instead of a proper D-pad. And it's like, what the fuck are we doing? Nobody I've never encountered anyone that's like, you know what, I really prefer having the 4 buttons instead of a fucking traditional D-pad on the fucking Joy-Con. It's terrible!
It's fucking crazy, and they do it for the sole reason of playing games with only one Joy-Con. That is the entire reason. So you have a stick and then 4 buttons, right? And I'm just like, are you guys sure that it's a bad time to have a D-pad for the 4 buttons? Because I feel like this is way worse. And it's pretty insane that it still looks like that. That's also the first thing I noticed. In the Discord, they posted that, and the first thing I said is like, so I gotta buy the fucking aftermarket thing again?
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. And like, look, Corey makes some great products. Big Corey fan over here. So I'm happy to support Corey because I know that they're going to roll out something that's great. The problem is that if you remember in the timeline, there was like kind of a dark age when it came to, second-party peripherals for the Switch. And Corey was the first company to release, as far as I understand.
Gamecast, was that the terrible one, right? I'm trying to think of the terrible one.
Corey released one that literally had issues. It was a traditional D-pad, which was nice. But there was, especially on the base original Switch, it would interact with the Switch and cause like massive problems with the screen. And so it was like this big issue. But like there really wasn't an option early on in the Switch's life cycle for fucking something that, felt better to use. And I get it, I understand. Like I don't want to undersell, people using one Joy-Con to play a game because I've done that before. Not a lot, but if you've got people around, it is fun. But I think that there is like a way that you could figure it out. Or, from Nintendo's perspective, which is very much not a Nintendo thing, just sell like a higher SKU of Joy-Con that's strictly dedicated to people that do not want the little buttons.
Yeah. Just have it. Just nickel and dime me for another $59, right?
Yeah.
And I'll bitch about it on this podcast and then buy it.
Right.
And move on with our life. Because it's so fucking. The second I saw it, I was like, oh my god.
Every time I mess around with the Switch, if I have traditional Joy-Cons on them, I immediately am like, ew, gross. I don't want to use these. They fucking suck.
It's absolutely terrible.
So we'll see what happens with these new ones. You have to take all of that with a grain of salt. Most people say that is probably a pretty accurate and not like it's probably a leaked image from Nintendo that was sent out to devs. So we'll see what happens. But anyways, echoes of wisdom. Yes. So this thing is very interesting, man. The thing that this game has kind of emulated when we kind of compare it to the last 2 outings for the Zelda series in Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, is this kind of like experimentation with assets that they provide. And
Kind of brilliant.
yeah, it's an incredibly brilliant thing.
The second I touched it in my limited time, I was like, oh, they didn't just forget about the previous two. Like, there's a lot of experimentation in that. I will just say, in the hour and a half, if it keeps going at the current rate, there's a weird amount of things that you unlock to be able to craft out of thin air.
There is maybe too many.
I already have like 18 or 15 or something, and I've only played an hour or so.
I'm probably pretty close to 100 plus.
We'll talk about what that will soon, obviously, keep going for the hook.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It's like transplant traditional, like old school Zelda that you would see on the Game Boy or the Super Nintendo, that kind of perspective and that gameplay loop that everyone loves, or most people love. And then implement that experimentation, aspect of Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom into this, and that's basically what this thing is. You're posed with a lot of different options to solve puzzles, and there really is no one way to solve something, and that's the brilliance of this game. It really starts making you think, and the way that it works is you have this little character that comes along with you that's called Tri, and there is like a currency that Tri essentially has on its back. It's like its tail. And as you progress, you get more and more of this currency. And every item that you find in the environment, you can learn a spell that allows you to manifest that item into the world. And sometimes it's inanimate objects that are going to help you kind of traverse, obstacles, things like that, solve puzzles. And then there's also every enemy that you encounter in the game. Once you defeat it, you learn the ability to summon it. So combat is largely revolves around
being a necromancer.
Exactly, yeah. And it's pretty fucking sweet, especially when you get. Right now, I think I have six. I have 6 uses of this, and all of the right, and all of 6 or 7, and all of the items that you find have a cost associated with them, right? Some of them will cost more, some of them cost less. Yes. So like inanimate objects that you're going to first run into, like a crate or a trampoline or a bed, is usually one cost. So you drop one of them, it takes one of those currency away from a tribe, and you have a limited amount. So you kind of have to work within the confines of that, limitation.
Like resource system of understanding
Exactly.
how to do the puzzle within what you have.
Right. But within that kind of framework, there's just a lot of flexibility in the exact same fucking way that we saw with the last 2 Zelda games. And it is fucking brilliant, dude. It is brilliant in the same ways that it's brilliant in the previous 2 games. Now, obviously, there are limitations to it that you maybe wouldn't see in Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild, but very few. And honestly, I have just been consistently impressed with how flexible the game is and how it allows you to kind of experiment with these items that you can manifest and solve puzzles and deal with issues that arise.
As I was playing it, I really felt when I was like, the last 2 Zeldas really grabbed me because that sandbox style really, I was like, this is amazing. So it's really exciting because I'm not a typical 2D Zelda guy. That's not my jam. So for this game to have it, I was like, this is pretty compelling, even though I can clearly, or at least I'm assuming it's going to be limited or lesser in scope than what the previous games are as far as the batshit crazy things you can create. But it kind of seemed like a no-brainer, and I was like, this is awesome. And then, not to go back to the performance, but back in my head, I'm just like, what if you wait till spring and it gets better? It looks better.
Yeah, fair. No, that's fair. But yeah, I've just been super impressed with it. And, to your point, like, there really isn't a lot of limitations in terms of what you can do.
I love that you get a bed first. The fucking bed cracks me up.
The bed, this is one slight criticism that I will have of this game, is the bed is the most useful fucking thing in the game.
Well, it's a rectangle, and it takes like 2 squares, and the others are 1, so you can create a ladder type situation pretty easily.
Yeah, you build stairs with it.
And very, very quickly, I was like, bet for life. This thing's sweet.
It also heals you, which is a game changer. And as you progress, you get better beds. Better beds. This one's got a fucking mattress topper. This one's fucking Tempur-Pedic over here, motherfucker. Yeah. This one's got fucking Egyptian sheets on it, for God's sakes. You get Zelda's bed at one point in time. Also, that's something you should add. You play as Zelda in this game. You don't play as fucking Link, which I have found, like, not for us and people that probably listen to this podcast, but I think that's like kind of a hard thing for a lot of people to digest. My girlfriend in particular is like, so it's called The Legend of Zelda, but you don't play as Zelda. And it's like, yeah, but Zelda is like very much involved in pretty much every game. But why is it called The Legend of Zelda? Why is it called The Legend of Link if you play as Link? And it's like, stop asking questions, you know? But
we had a whole shirt meme about it.
Yeah. But here we are. Fucking Zelda is the main character in this game, which is a pretty fucking cool thing. And I think it's a smart move. There was a lot of talk leading up to release because there was like some stuff that was released that showed you controlling Link. And, I'm probably 20-ish hours into this. The game takes about 19, 20 hours. I'm like towards the end. I'm doing the last dungeon right now. I've gotten all of the things. I've traversed the entire world. Yes, so I'm very close to that. Probably an hour or less for me to be done.
Maybe literally at the last boss, it's going to alternate. You're still going to swing your sword.
Well, here's the thing. This is what I was going to say. I don't know if you've gotten to this point. Sounds like you haven't, but it's very early on. You got to be close to it. I think they would have ran into some big trouble because combat, like I said, is largely summoning enemies to kind of do your fucking bidding and fight combat. And it's kind of a passive thing where you summon them and then you can target an enemy that you want to fight and then the fucking monster does the work for you. You just have to kind of dodge their attacks. And I like it.
You just send out 5 bats.
Exactly, yeah. Send those fucking keys out.
Yeah.
I love that bats in Zelda are called keys. It's good. It's good stuff.
That's a bat.
Yeah, it's a bat, but yeah. So early on in the game, you get this gauge that you fill up, and when you fill it up, well, it doesn't have to be full, but there's a gauge that you get that allows you to transform into like a female version of Link that has all of Link's abilities. So, and as you progress through the game, you get more and more of Link's abilities. So like at the beginning you start with just the sword and shield, and it plays exactly like any Zelda game you could possibly imagine. And then as you progress you get like the bow, and then you get the bombs, and
that makes sense. I was confused because like literally the first 20 minutes you play this thing, and you have all those things.
Yeah.
And I was just like, did they really just put these in here to not touch this again?
No, and so the only knock that I would highlight is that it's limited to that gauge. But also the way that the game works and functions is it's like this is your best bet to inflict heavy damage on enemies, bosses, etc. So a lot of the combat loop is really utilizing some very powerful minion that you have to inflict damage on a boss, and then when they're in like a stun state, you switch over to fucking Zelda Link, and you beat the shit out of him with your sword.
Not Link.
Yeah, not Link. But it's funny because it's Zelda, but then she turns blue, and she's got like Link's clothes on, but you can clearly see that it's Zelda. It's pretty brilliant, and
Kind of.
What do you mean? What do you mean kind of?
They couldn't have come up with any way that Zelda could like have an attack.
Well, I'm sure they could have. But I think that they have like a clear vision in terms of what they wanted this gameplay loop to be. And so, but I would say that if they did not include this, there would probably be a lot of people that are very angry about this, and it would be probably much more divisive than it probably will end up being, because
you can still have your sword and board.
Correct. And you can play the, and there are ways to like level up the gauge as you progress through the story, which allows you to be in that form for a longer period of time. You're upgrading the sword, the bow, the bombs. You're doing the whole fucking thing.
Okay.
The whole kit caboodle is here, Nick. But again, you're limited. Also, kind of like a revelation, for me at least, was when you are initially playing Link at the beginning of the game, he's got this fucking sweet-ass jump, and you're like, man, this jump's so satisfying. He does this like little somersault thing, and then you play as Zelda, and it's just like, she just fucking jumps, like she just hops on the ground, and it's not as satisfying, but as soon as you switch into that form, you get that jump. So there are ways to implement that into puzzle solving and traversing the world as well, dungeons, etc., that come in handy. But I think it's a pretty satisfying loop. I think that the minion AI in particular is not as strong as it could be. There's a lot of times where I'm like, I'll summon like an enemy or a minion to like throw a spear at something, like range. And I'm like highlighting, just like spamming the button. I'm like, that one, throw the fucking spear at that one. And they just kind of like mosey around and meander. And then they'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, now I'm gonna do it. And it's just like, it needs to be a little bit snappier. So that's kind of a knock. But what I will say, as you get more and more of the currency that allows you to summon things, you can summon a fucking army of things to go after. Like, have you ever wanted to summon like fucking 6 of the little octopuses that spit fucking rocks at things?
Oh, yeah, those do certain nightmares.
Yeah, fucking summon them and then have them wreak havoc on your enemies. It's a good time.
I'm kind of imagining that type of system in a 3D game, and that's could be somewhat incredible as well.
For sure.
Like,
Yeah.
you could really imagine where that could go,
Yep.
and you'd be, oh, yeah, maybe they should do that because that's maybe a logical progression. Even though this one just did it.
Yeah. I absolutely. The Lionels from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, you get one of those. And let me tell you, Nick, he's pretty fucking good, man. He fucks shit up.
How do you feel about puzzles?
Great.
Generally, the puzzles feel pretty good.
Really good, traditional Zelda puzzles that utilize the system that is in place here in a great way. All of the temples I have enjoyed quite a bit.
Small key, big key temples.
100%.
We are right.
We're right there. And there are a lot of puzzles in this game. Because one of the things that is kind of brilliant is there's like this world is pretty detailed. It's pretty robust. There's lots of secrets and things to find. Lots of puzzles that are not tied specifically to a dungeon or a temple, and more just you're roaming the open world. You find a hole in the ground. You go down in there, and then there's like a small puzzle section that you have to solve. That are all going to have different themes and kind of things that you kind of have to navigate. It's fucking great because it's like, okay, well I just got this thing and this thing and this thing, and how can I utilize them in conjunction with one another to kind of navigate these puzzles and solve it, right? And the shrines in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom provide so much flexibility. And there's not one way to solve it. And one of the most brilliant things about those games, is probably the most brilliant thing in my opinion, is just how wild and crazy you can get with this kit that they provide to you. That's here in this. To a lesser degree, like I said, just because of the confines or limitations of it being an old school Zelda. But there's just so much flexibility.
You can still look like you are absolutely solving things not how they designed it.
Absolutely.
But in your head, you're like, this is how it's designed. And other people would be like, what the fuck's he doing?
Yep.
There's a lot of beds over there.
Yeah.
It's weird.
There's too many fucking beds. Yes. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of side quests in this game as well. So
Track, like, in the menu.
yeah, you can track it all in the menu. There's like quest markers that are present, which could have fucking done that in the last 2 games. Just saying, I know that they did, but especially at launch of vanilla Breath of the Wild, it was a fucking nightmare to track quests and follow around. If you remember, they had to like release a fucking update that provided all of those features for you.
The biggest problems they had with quest markers was kind of when it got more vague, because sometimes you had to find shit. So that it wasn't like, hey, you gotta go here and find something. It was like, the quest marker took you to the person that gave you the quest. That's how it worked. And you're like, well, This is the fucking mystery, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, I'll go out and find the random horse in the field.
Right, exactly. That's not here. Everything is pretty digestible, pretty straightforward. You can find everything easily. And yeah, I mean, the one thing that I would be kind of critical of the quest structure is that the rewards are not great. It's like I got a fucking apple. I got a bundle of apples for fucking saving your daughter or some shit like that. And it's just like, I just wish that there was like, I know that you can't get a heart container for every single fucking side quest. I get that.
Zelda hasn't cracked the code of like some sort of gear or something, because all of them are the same. Tears of the Kingdom is the same. Like all the shrines, like you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get a decent weapon, but like so many times Zelda's got a problem with the rewards.
True.
And I hope that.
Well, it doesn't, right? Because when we're talking about like in-temple achievement or rewards, those are pretty consistently satisfying.
Yeah, those are game progression rewards.
When I got the fucking hook shot, I think I creamed my pants.
They have rewards that are required, and those are great.
Yeah.
But then the other 1,000 ones where it's
Sure.
fucking Ruby!
Yeah. I got a rupee. Yeah, exactly. It's like I got 20 rupees for my fucking hard work here. So yeah, I mean, it's not drastically changing that kind of loop as far as the quest structure goes, but there is a lot of here, and I have done pretty much everything that I've ran into. And in some of those quests, there's like some really cool ways to kind of circumnavigate like what the, in air quotes, intended way to do it is. And so it's really satisfying. It's kind of hard to describe how satisfying it is to solve a puzzle, a Zelda-style puzzle, organically, by like kind of trial and erroring it. Whereas like older Zeldas, and then also just games in general, from the past, there's just like this very stringent way to complete something. And I think giving the player the opportunity to kind of figure it out on their own, in their own way, is a brilliant thing.
Yeah, I the big thing I found kind of a hard time with this is I didn't finish Tears of the Kingdom. I love Tears of the Kingdom. I think I can get one more dungeon and then tons of cleanup. That's kind of hard to sell because I'm going to compare the two and say, which one do you want to spend 20 hours on? It's like, well, probably still Tears of the Kingdom. I didn't finish over there. Like, I still have stuff to do.
Well, the counter to that would be, how long is it going to take to finish Tears of the Kingdom if you are a crazy person?
A couple hundred hours.
Exactly. How long is it going to take to finish Next Wisdom? 25 hours for a completionist run.
That's fair, because 20 hours isn't going to, it's not going to do it on Tears of the Kingdom. And all I really hope for is that all that save stuff will move to the next one, because I would like you to keep cracking away with that.
Yeah. So that's like kind of the majority of what this thing is doing. You're going to find a lot of the same things that make Zelda games from the past satisfying. The boss fights are really fun. I've seen people say that this is like a really challenging game, but I have not been particularly challenged. There's one fight, and it's like essentially the midpoint of the game, where a lot of people are probably like, is this the end of the game? Because you fight someone that you typically would fight at the end of Zelda. I think I just spoiled it for anybody that's fucking played a Zelda game in the last fucking 20 years, but well, there is a new antagonist in this game. So it's not your typical Ganon or Ganondorf, which that's a weird distinction. Why is it in the 2D games he's Ganon, and then I guess in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom they call him Calamity Ganon, but then in like Ocarina of Time he's Ganondorf? I don't fucking understand.
If we're talking about the timeline and lore of Zelda, that's going to be a separate show.
Yeah.
That's because that's a whole different beast.
For sure.
And they continue to try to say that there's a timeline, but then they also continue to say, well, there are different timelines too. So you're just like, why do we even try?
But man, once you get over the hump, I was really having trouble with the frame rate at the beginning.
You played it enough to move on.
I was like, this fucking thing runs like shit, and I really am having a hard time with it. But push past that hump, and this is, we still got a few more notable titles coming out, but I really enjoyed my time with this thing. I would be shocked if it's not on my game of the year list.
Nice.
For sure. It's fantastic. High recommend. I've had a blast with it, and it's the most fun I've had playing my Switch in years, maybe. I think this game's fantastic, and I think the reason why I like it so much, aside from the things that I highlighted, is I get a lot of vibes between A Link Between Worlds, which is my favorite Zelda game maybe ever. That Ocarina probably, but this thing I think doesn't quite reach the heights that I felt about A Link Between Worlds, but it's fucking close, man. This thing's fantastic. It's pretty goddamn good. Stop fucking... I wish we could go back in time and just, like, talk to Anuma and his team and be like, hey, tone down the bed usage, though. There's ways... This is one thing that I will highlight that is kind of... it's kind of negative, it's a nitpick, but... I don't know how many echoes I have, but I have a lot of echoes, like a massive amount of them. And you can navigate, there's a way to navigate the screen, and there are sorting features, which are like game changers, because there is like most used, so you can just immediately hit Y and it will sort it to like, what's your most used item? And the bed is just like heads and tails. I've got like 3 fucking beds in a row, because it's like, I use this bed because it costs 1 resource. Yeah, but then fucking Zelda's bed heals you much faster, so I'm just throwing that bitch down whenever I get in trouble to heal myself up. And so it's just like, stop using so many beds. But
you get in that bed in the middle of a fight.
Oh yeah, a few times I've done that. Fuck yeah. It's like, oh, the enemy just disappeared, the boss just disappeared, I got time to get in a quick sleep, heal myself up a little bit. Yeah, it's very interesting, but it does get a little overwhelming navigating the amount of echoes that you have. Late games specifically, it's just like, oh my god, I have so many of them, and I'm just like cycling. The cycle animation is very fast, and the sorting features are there. But I kind of wish that there was some sort of like middle ground, some sort of like radio menu that you could set like your top 5 favorite ones. You could sort them by type, which is nice.
If you had a radio menu or something, you could have attack ones and platforming ones, right? Because those are drastically different situations.
Yeah, and there is a way in the menu, like I said, to sort it by type, so it will like sort every, like, here's all of the jars and fucking crates that you have, and here's all the enemies that you've captured.
But you still got to hold L and then sort, right?
Yes.
It'd be nice if you could just immediately go to the radio combat one with the radio.
Yeah. The last thing that I want to highlight is there is Dempy, who is like a returning character. He's in a lot of games. I think that, I don't say this with any sense of pride, but I think that he has like a disability. Like the way that they render it. He looks like his parents are also brother and sister. That's what I'm saying. But he's like an inventor in this game, and you like probably mid-game you get the ability to go and talk to him. And the way that his kind of thing works is there are items that you will find in the environment, and they're like consequential items, unique items. And for the first little bit of the game, you're like, what the fuck do I do with this? Because the first one I ran into was a fan in the desert, in the Gerudo Desert, and I was like, I assumed that the fan was going to let me spin because Zelda has this like cute little spin that she uses to cut down grass and things like that. You can do that freely. So I was just in my mind, I was like, this is going to allow me to cut more grass in like in a radius. But no, it just sits in your inventory and you look at it and it's got this very like vague explanation of what it is. And you're like, well, what the fuck do I do with this? But once you meet Dempy, he will say to you, okay, bring me this thing and this thing, and I will create like this unique thing for you, right? And those items are also used in some of his creations. So he's got a whole list of these automatons, I think is what he calls them, that are on their own button once you get the ability. and it's a separate menu because there's like 6 or 7 of them total. But they're like OP enemies that you can summon, and they do crazy shit. And the downside is that if you throw it out in battle and it dies, you have to go back to him and give him the currency to repair it. But they are ridiculously powerful, like crazy strong. They do all sorts of unique things, and they are really fun to mess around with. And it is this like longer form quest line where he will require you to bring 2 different objects to him, and then once he has those, and then one of the items that you found in the previous quest, he combines it all together and creates this like super minion for you. And it's pretty compelling. There's a few of them, and they do really interesting things. I have this one that shoots fireworks out of its mouth, and that shit just fucking wrecks. There's another one that sings, and as it sings, it shoots out musical notes, and they spread across the environment and just decimate anything in their way. So they're pretty cool, but again, like, you want to use them somewhat sparingly because as they go down, like I said, you gotta go trudge your way back up to his ass to repair them. But kind of a cool
currency that you usually have.
Yeah, and it's not super expensive to repair them. You find it's monster parts, I think, is what you use to repair it. But it's an interesting mechanic that I haven't seen in another Zelda game, and it's cool. It's cool, and you can use them to solve puzzles as well. Like there are certain uses for each individual one that's pretty compelling. So,
Nice.
this thing's good, man. It's a good game.
Yeah, it sounds good. It's unfortunate that we have to like start with the technical shit.
Mhm.
It's like the things selling. You just wish you didn't have to talk about that because then it would just be like all stars.
100%, yeah. We've had some really great video games in 2024, which is it's pretty surprising.
2020, it's a year that I would have said looks like a down year, and then just quietly, I think, and maybe we should have a conversation later in the year. I'm borderline thinking that I prefer this year over the previous years.
Probably.
I think I've really got some stuff that really speaks to me and gravitates to me. I'm just like, fuck.
The list last year was just so easy for me to kind of put together. It was like, this is a no-brainer, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here. And there's really nothing else that I could have thought of putting on that list. This year I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do because there's like quite a few that I have really enjoyed. So.
This year's crazy. We played a Prince of Persia 2D game that was great, and I don't think it possibly makes my list. And that game's really good. Like, just kind of wild looking back and all that stuff. But, so we will take a little break. We will come back and we're going to talk about Frostpunk 2. All right, we're back. And, I usually we just do the one cocktail and then get back to our normal beer. But I was in my house and I remembered I had an extremely lucrative bottle of whiskey. That's not I don't collect High West whiskey. High West, they are a local distillery that has gotten extremely. I feel like it's gotten pretty popular across the country. Just from my time on Reddit. And we're able to get stuff. Some of it's harder than others, but my wife is the one that actually kind of collects the High West stuff. She likes it quite a bit, so I don't ever really touch it. And it was a while back. We were playing games one night, and I think our friend Dan was like, "Yeah, I've got this bottle of EPKA or something." He was like, that bottle's worth hundreds of dollars. And I was like, really? I went and tried it, and I was like, I don't think it should be. But anyway, I thought it'd be fun for us to try it because I just Googled, and the price for this bottle is right around $300 to $800 if you just look at the price. Mm-hmm. And wow, it's not worth that. Like.
Yeah, so High West is absolutely very popular across the country, and I think for good reason.
They make really good stuff.
Really good stuff. But for us, it's very easy, right? It's almost like living. But I've been to Kentucky, and I don't think it's the same. Like you get this idea. Like I live in Louisville, and so I can go and get like all of the greatest bourbons that exist. And it's like it's not like that. Like even for them, you gotta know someone. You gotta do your homework and pick the right places to go to get those bottles. But here in Utah, in Park City, if you go up to the bar, it's like a saloon, and the distillery is there as well. Like, you just have to follow them on social media. They'll tell when, like, the limited stuff's coming out, and it's not very hard. You might have to wait in a line, but you can get whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly. They will sell out, but you can get it, and you can get it without an enormous amount of effort. Mm-hmm. The last time when, like, that Midsummer Night's Dram came out, I just went to the liquor store the day it was supposed to be there, and there was maybe one other person, and there were a bunch of bottles, and I got some. And I don't want to throw this one under the bus, because I think it's perfectly enjoyable to drink. I don't think it was very expensive when we purchased it. Like,
probably $50 or $60.
Yeah, exactly. Probably $50, $60, and that's about the right price point. But it's really wild, and maybe I think the market's kind of gotten out of control. The frenzy of searching for the bottles is really kind of it's not a problem. I guess that it's good for the industry is that there's an excitement around it, but you've got people paying a lot of money for bottles that it's just like, if I paid $300 for this, I would just be like, well, are we sure I'm making the right decisions? Like, what?
Spoiler, no, you're not. So, nose-wise, this thing has got an incredible nose. It smells fucking delicious. And then you taste it, and it just falls flat. Like, it's not bad. The front end of it is really nice, and you're like, oh, okay, and then it just dissipates.
There's no finish.
No finish. The finish is not there. Fuck off, you little fly bitch. There's no finish, and yeah, it's pretty disappointing.
It's not disappointing in the confines of someone pours. It's like, hey, I got this bottle of High West. Do you want to have some whiskey? And you understand that it's normally priced. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be disappointed. I wouldn't be like putting it up on all this. Like, I would not. This is not something I would buy and have on the shelf. I like to talk about kind of like, oh, what do you just want on the shelf? That's not necessarily.
Yeah.
I just can't believe what's happening with some of the prices of this shit. And it's like, holy shit. Especially just as I've followed kind of just like the whiskey subreddit more and more, and how often I'm seeing people put up pretty high profile bottles that I'm seeking, and they're like, which one should I buy? And it's a High West, and it's this one, and it's just like, the other one. You should buy the other one.
Yeah, people fucking love this stuff. I'm in a group on social media called High West Enthusiasts, and the prices that you will see for bottles that I'm like, I have one of these, and like I drink it every once in a while, and it's not my favorite by any means.
Do you have much High West over there?
I do, yeah. I also have an extraordinarily expensive bottle. They just re-released it, so I don't know, but I think it was limited. But it's Valley Tam is what it's called, and it's apparently it's a recipe of like a whiskey that was distilled and created in Utah back in like the pioneer days, and so it's kind of unique from that perspective. Hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a bottle of it. And like I'll pull it every once in a while. It's not bad, but it's also not incredible. So like yes, to the product quality to the price for High West in particular, I don't think is there. I mean, they make some very good products, but like and they're a solid distillery, but I just don't think it's there. Like, and maybe we're a little jaded because we have such easy access
to it. Is
MSRP
okay?
For Valley Tam?
No, I'm just saying, well, no, you're saying High West. High West MSRP, are you on board for that? Or even that?
No, I'm on board for it. I think that anything that you can get at the bottle shop in Park City for, the MSRP price, which they don't do any markups there. Yeah. So yes, absolutely, I would recommend it. But then when you compare High West product to like some of the heavier hitters in the bourbon industry, a lot of that Sazerac, Buffalo Trace stuff that's like really hard to find. Yeah. You try some of those bottles and you're like, I can see the stretch. Like I can see why this thing is as desirable as it is because it's fucking delicious.
Yeah. Absolutely. Anyway, it's kind of a fun thing. Man, I have become obsessed in a way that I don't know that I've been quite obsessed this year with a game, which was maybe shocking to me and maybe not because I like this type of game, but Frostpunk 2 came out. And I believe I talked about the first Frostpunk on this show early on.
Way back in the day.
Yeah, way back.
2018 maybe?
And probably within the first year. And it was a game I really liked at the time. the general gist of this thing is kind of your overhead RTS viewpoint, and there are no enemies within the game. The enemy is essentially the cold. You know, they are basically in the apocalypse, and you've got serious temperature changes to deal with as you build out your town and just try to survive. And that's how the first game was built, and I really liked the first game. I played quite a bit of it, played through the whole campaign, dabbled a little bit in the additional endless modes that came out, and I always thought it was just really good. And when they announced Frostpunk 2, my initial reaction was, I'm not sure if this is needed, because I didn't know what they were going to do, and I was just kind of picturing a sequel that just didn't quite add enough. And they really surprised me here, and they've taken the core idea, which is still there, and just they removed the fat on some items, in regards to, like, in the first Frostpunk, you were really managing temperature levels, but you had like heating hubs, and different buildings could heat themselves, and within your city you would have ranging temperatures, and you really had to manage that on a micro level. And I want to say I disliked it, because I pretty much loved that game, but they really threw that out. And now the second one is really focusing on, like, here's how much heat it takes to heat your colony. So we're not going on a micro level, we're up on the macro level looking at, well, here's just what it fucking takes. You've got the technology to heat the buildings, here's what you gotta take. And man, I really fucking like it. It's crazy for that. It's such a small change, but in like how they've deployed it, I'm like, this is so much better. I really fucking like how they've gone into, and that's just the heating element of the site, where you are mining coal, you're digging for oil, you can do steam in certain playthroughs, depending on how your choices are. And so immediately right off the bat, I was like, well, this thing's making some pretty good changes. And also, they've kind of changed, like, instead of making the smaller buildings, you kind of do full districts, and you expand upon these districts. So you're just like, all right, I'm going to make an extraction district or an industrial district, and then I expand it and build buildings within the district that you are researching in an extraordinarily comprehensive research tree that throughout the main story you cannot max it out. By design, you cannot max it out, because you need to decide where your loyalties lie, and like kind of where you're going to take the colony. And the reason that you've got to do that is that before, in Frostpunk 1, you had all your citizens, and they had opinions. They were like one big group, right? And you do child labor or something like that, and you're like, hey, if I enact a law that allows everyone to do child labor, I'm going to get more production on this side. And then that's, had negative connotations and then positive ones. But
it does?
Yeah, obviously.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, I'm just like, this makes sense. And maybe it's a good fit for the U.S., but I don't know, we're still figuring it out. But
I think we tried it. We tried it at one point. I don't think it was the best thing in the world.
You thought that was trying it again.
And you talk, by the way. Sometimes I pick up fucking food at like a restaurant, and I'm like, you're like 12.
You are very young. It's really interesting just what they've done here, because now they've introduced, on top of everything, factions. So essentially you have 4 different types of people within your city, and they all have different opinions on the type of policy you need to pass. Mm-hmm. And this is a separate from, you've got the main game, which is a resource simulator, where you're just balancing numbers. Do I have enough resources here across like 4 different types? And then now you've got the people, and you've got to balance their essentially their emotions. I think they call it tension, and then their trust. And those are two different things. And it's really fucking compelling. It really is, because if they go too far south, and if you just say, well, fuck the pilgrims, which I absolutely said in my first playthrough. I was like, these fucking guys, They don't want to, they're not about the generator. They want to like figure out a different way to survive. And I'm like pro generator. I want to upgrade this. This is going to be the best generator you've ever seen. And they really go south. And then what happens is like if a faction goes too far south, they will end up rioting and then going into your districts and essentially shutting them down and literally destroying shit. So you've got this min-max that you're doing in Frostpunk on multiple levels. You're balancing your resources and you're balancing all of your fucking people and trying to keep maybe not everyone happy, but just some people from rioting and other ones just being really stoked about you. Like my first playthrough, I was all about the stalwarts, who were essentially are fascists, from what I can tell. They're just the dudes. They're just like, we're not dealing with any of the bullshit. If there's a problem, we're gonna kill that person and move on and just like a rule with an iron fist. And really, it's a really satisfying loop. It's a very difficult game. The second you start up the game, before the difficulty slider comes up, it's like, hey, you should start on easy, period. It's not like, hey, have you played before? It's just like, this game's hard, you should start on easy and you should work your way up. So I didn't do that, and I started one up. So there's 4 difficulty levels. I started 1 difficulty level up on officer, and I'm pretty happy I did it, but it was fucking hard. It was extraordinarily hard. I didn't have to save scum or load anything. I was able to complete the story in 12 to 14 hours. Extraordinarily compelling experience. I thought it was, you absolutely are just like, for a game where you're just looking at a map, like this is a map game, it's run through your head. Like maximizing the numbers, seeing that this resource is running out. I gotta figure out another one. And on top of all of that, there's an exploration mechanic. So you've got another team, and you're building buildings where you're sending people outside of your town to find other resources, to find other people. And that wasn't the first game, but I feel like they've really expanded it quite a bit in this one. And God, I'm so fucking high on this whole experience because I just think it's a really good loop for people that just like pain. Like it's a fucking bitch. There's not a lot of high points in this game, but occasionally, like towards the end of my first playthrough on Officer, I really had things locked down. Like, hey, my supplies were looking good, and it was still a photo finish a little bit. There were a lot of riots because basically at the end of the game, Pilgrims didn't like what I did, and you have choices. You're just like, I'm going to make it work. I'm going to lower tension within everyone, and we're all going to live here together. Or you could be like, I found this crazy fucking windy field, and I think that the Pilgrims should live there. And that's the one I chose. And it's like, all right, well, you gotta do some shit and kind of like make it better. So I literally exiled the whole population from my society, which is pretty gross. But there's a lot of gross things in this game. But it was really good. I finished that game, and I finished my initial playthrough, and was like, this thing's fucking great. If you're the type of person that wants this experience, this isn't it's not Civilization. I feel like it's easier to wrap your head around than a Civilization. Also, Civilization is turn-based, and this is active time, but you can pause it. So you can speed up the time, you can move faster. Extremely fucking high on this game. I immediately started another playthrough on the next difficulty up, and I'm like crying over here. I think I've got it. I was hoping to get through the next playthrough on higher difficulty before we got here, but I had some catastrophic problems, and I had to go back to the save. It is pretty important to, you gotta have your saves. Not necessarily, save scumming to me is like if you're saving every minute and then you go back, you're never gonna fucking know. In this game, we're talking about saving at the beginning of a chapter, and you gotta go make a bunch of fucking decisions, and then you're gonna realize I fucked it up, and I don't need to go back 5 minutes. We're gonna go back 2 hours. We're gonna try again. And it really, for whatever reason, it doesn't feel bad to me. I'm just like, yeah, let's fucking go try again. Let's figure out. I think I know where I went wrong with my resources and my fucking like emergency shifts where everyone has to work 24 hours a day. They killed it. Like, I can't believe what they've done with this thing, and I'm so high on it. It's crazy.
That's good. I mean, it's awesome that they were able to take some things that felt redundant in the first one or a little too tedious and kind of streamline it. I think in theory that's what a sequel should be, right? As long as it doesn't degrade the overall experience. I intended to play this. I did technically play it, but I did it while I was like super fucking drunk.
Which is perfect, yeah, why not?
And I immediately was like, I can't do this right now. I can't do it. So yeah, I haven't really touched it in any meaningful way, and I gotta be honest, all the things that you said make me not want to touch it at all. It's just not my, I don't know, like there is like a fine line between punishing difficulty and, you know, being worried about like, essentially keeping a bunch of different spinning plates up. Yeah. And that gave me a lot of anxiety, and so I don't know. I'm gonna try because you know you're very high on it. I'll give it a go. But initially, my thought process is like I don't know if this will be my cup of tea.
I think there's a lot. I think on that first difficulty, there's going to be a lot more room for error as you kind of just learn best practices, like what you need to worry about, what you need to stress about, and how to kind of navigate all the different parts. There's just a lot of moving parts in this thing, and it's really impressive. I don't know where this studio goes from here, like global warming punk or something, like the opposite or something. But like I'm really compelled because they clearly know how to create an incredible resource management thing where you're just the level of stress where you're just like fuck, and what am I gonna do? How do I solve this problem? And you always every time you have enough like heat stamps to build a building or something, there's always three things. You're just like, well, I need all three of them. Mm-hmm. So which one do I do here? You're making an enormous amount of decisions. And then on top of all that, with that skill tree that is extraordinarily varied, which my first playthrough, I'm just the fucking worst, right? Like I'm fracking, I'm doing like everything that's just like, whatever will bring us more stuff, or we're going to do it. And that's really compelling. And then the laws, which I talk about a lot, like you get to pass laws, you get to go to the factions and say, hey, do you want to be in charge of what the next law is we pass? And then that raises their bar. It might not pass. It's kind of really interesting. They can then put up a rule where we're like, hey, this is a pretty funny story actually. There was a law that was like, hey, we're gonna pay people more if they're more productive at work. That makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. So we passed that law, and then I got a notice a few weeks later, and people were complaining because one guy was an amputee. But he had a surgical ice picks attached, right? Mm-hmm. And then it wasn't fair because the guy that has two ice picks for arms is making all the money on this merit-based thing. And then you have to decide, you're just like, all right, we're going to not do that anymore, or we're going to keep rewarding the ice pick guy. And obviously, I rewarded the ice pick guy because he was doing a lot of good shit for us. Like he deserved it. Right. But it's that stuff nonstop. It's all great. Like it's always a great choice. 100%. Every time you have to make a choice, you're just like, well, there's no good answer. So what do I need? What am I hurting on right now? Yeah. They've done something impressive. I really can't really speak more highly on this thing. For people that like this type of game, I think this is fucking it.
Yeah, I like that you can choose to use like a different resource path to find success. Have you done your clean coal run? You know about clean coal, right? No, they take the coal out and then they clean it, and it becomes clean coal, Nick.
There isn't clean coal in the game. Coal really seems sidelined. You start within the main story. You start with coal, and then one of the main chapters is transitioning to oil. And then depending on your choices, you can get to steam. Steam seems like the fucking way to go, but my original choice in the first story never opened up, period. The tree, I didn't get to even entertain it. My second run, I've now got an option, and I'm like, I've just looked at like the numbers, and like when you're gonna build up a research aid, it tells you what it impacts. Like squalor is just like the state of your buildings and stuff, like disrepair, and there's disease and stuff like that. And I was looking at it, I was like, wow, steam really seems like it. And all that's really compelling because as you play through this single player story, you get a lot of knowledge about how the game works. And then they've got Utopia mode, and that I haven't touched it yet. That's the mode. That's endless. That's the mode you go to where you can just set up your playground and say, "Bring it at me," and see how long you can last and stuff like that. And they did that in the previous game as well. It looks like there's quite a few. There's a lot of different factions you can choose. Like you get to pick which factions are going to be in your town and everything. It just seems like there's an enormous amount of replayability in this thing, and. Yeah, I really don't have a lot of critiques about it.
Nice. Yeah, that's good. So is there like an overarching story during your campaign playthroughs, or?
Yeah. There's the story has a straight arc that's like, I mean, you're just trying to survive, but there's absolutely, like, this chapter, you gotta get oil. This chapter, we have got to figure out how to get more cores or settle a different place. There's kind of an arc, a splitting path within the story where you're going to decide whether we're going to settle other places or whether we're going to just strip all the other places to get all the resources to make our home the best place. And that's where a lot of conflict comes in. You got a lot of people that have different opinions on that stuff.
Gotcha.
It's a solid thing. I don't know. I'm extraordinarily, like, I'm loving this game. I will keep playing it. It's kind of hard to even imagine stopping right now. But at the same time, I'm just like, so where do they go next? Again, I would say not Frostpunk 3, but it's just like, so what could they come up with? Because they are clearly very good at this style of risk-reward game. So I would like to see what else they can come up with.
Has the studio done anything besides Frostpunk?
So,
Alright, yeah.
I think this is on Game Pass.
It is.
I think, yeah.
It is. We went over that the last time I was here because I was like, did you pay for this? And you looked at me like I was the dumbest fucking runner. And you're like, yeah, I paid for it. And I, what do you mean? Yeah, I paid for it. It's on my Steam. And I was like, oh, well, it's on Game Pass. And then you turned to me and you were like, well, I didn't realize it was on Game Pass. So yes, it is on Game Pass. I have it downloaded. That's the way that I've been playing it, or played it that one time. I will give it a fair shake. I will say that this will be, if this is the one that grabs me, this will be the first one that grabs me. These types of resource management games generally do not appeal to me, but I'll give it a go. I will report back.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. They do a pretty good job. They kind of have a prologue, and it allows you to learn the game, and then it does a full reset. And I think that's pretty smart. So that you can kind of be like, okay, this is how it works. All right. And then it gets a lot more complicated after that.
Yeah.
But at least it shows you, here are the basic things you need to be chasing.
Is like placement of your facilities very important? Like, because that's one mechanic that I absolutely hate in like Civ, for instance, where it's like, you don't want to put this on a grain field because of these reasons right here. So you want to put this in the fucking red clay instead of the brown mud, and it's just like, I don't want to know all this in my mind. I don't want to have to go through all these processes in my mind.
I don't want to say that there are factors for sure. It's not necessarily like that, but like if you create districts, so you're like, I want a housing district, and it's going to take up 6 squares. If you do 6 squares in a line, that's inefficient for heat. If you do 6 squares in a circle, that's efficient for heat, because they're next to each other and they get a benefit from being next to each other. On top of that, there are heating hubs that take 1 square. So if you are really playing long term, if your 6 squares create a circle and you drop a heating hub inside it, fucking, oh man, oh, it feels good. Like it brings down everything on how much oil you're burning because the heating hub's extremely efficient. And if it's touching districts on all sides, it really works out well. So there is absolutely layout strategy, but there isn't a lot of like, is this land the land? Like there's obvious, like you can only build a food district where there's food, but there isn't like ranging. It's just like, no, you can only build it where there's food. That's the way it fucking works.
Yeah, I mean, out like, obviously I don't know anything about this. I didn't play the first one, I haven't played this one really, but I think the natural progression is like, if they could somehow find like a way to implement it is like, you've got factions already that you're kind of having to contend with, why not rival settlements that you have to deal with, right? In some, serious way, whether that's like through combat or diplomacy or whatever. But then I don't know if that just can fundamentally takes away from what this game is.
Because right now the only antagonist is coal, essentially.
How close to Midgard does your city look? Because like naturally you look at Midgar and you're like, that's in a steampunk fucking, well maybe not steampunk, but pretty steampunky. You look at that and you're like, I don't know, can you create Midgar? Can you suck the life force from the planet in this game? Because sign me up for that.
It's pretty fucking close.
Okay.
And you can click on a district and zoom in for no reason, but just to like see it, and it's fucking good. Like it's absolutely.
It's sucking the life force hard.
Absolutely, for sure. So, yeah, really happy about that. Really having a great time. I'll keep probably chipping away a little bit at that. Still been playing Astro.
What the fuck is Astropunk?
It's a totally different thing.
Okay.
I've still been playing Astro. My daughter is so fucking into it. She regularly during the week she'll be like, hey, we can play tonight, and it's like, no, it's too late, it's too close to bedtime, and then she's just stuck at the weekend. And I'm just slowly chipping away at it. How's progress going over there?
I finished. Done. I completed the Astrobot. I got all the bots, all 300 of the bots. I got all the little animations, the canned animations for all the bots, and fixed the mothership and flew off into the sunset thing.
Pretty happy about that whole thing?
Yeah, I think that game's great. I've seen some people saying that this might be one of the greatest games ever made, and I wouldn't go that far necessarily, especially if we're just like separating it in like the category of like 3D platformers. Right. I don't think that I would go that far. I think overall I enjoyed Odyssey more than this, but it's pretty close, man. I think that Odyssey, just the mechanics that game has and how unique and creative it was, really kind of sets it on another level in my mind. But from like a platforming perspective, this game is fantastic. The variation of levels from world to world is fucking first class, and you're never really bored. I was like continually excited to see what the thing was going to throw at me next. So very, very happy overall with my time with it. One large asterisk would be those face button levels really drove me nuts. And
I've now done only like 3, and they've been okay.
Yeah.
I will say the 3 that I've done have taken me 5 to 10 tries. But there's still plenty more for me to keep going. And I will keep going because at the current rate, I don't know that my daughter's going to let me play anything else when we play. So like I will probably keep chipping away. I'm about halfway through as far as how many bots there are.
She's into Zelda, by the way?
Yeah, but it's a little harder. It's a little complicated. I'm kind of considering whether to show her this newest one to see if she would like that. But the
That's what I was asking about specifically.
She loves playing, and she's getting really good on the controller. But even in Astrobot, if an enemy shows up, she literally throws the controller at me. She throws it at me. She really loves exploring, which I think it's why Astrobot's been such a hit, because you fly around the different planets. There are times when there are enemies that she is getting pretty good at platforming, And then you go back to, she tells it home base, and she just loves it. Like, we finish a new level, and she's like, what have they unlocked at home base? And then there's really almost no enemies when you're back in that area.
That's satisfying to a 4-year-old. It's also satisfying to a 35-year-old. Because yes, that's absolutely how I fucking did it as well. I would go back and be like, I've got X amount of bots now I can create this bridge and see what's over here, so that's very satisfying. So you're unlocking new facilities as you gain puzzle pieces. There is the gotcha machine, which we went over in the last podcast. There is like a costume center where you can change costumes. There's some fucking banging ass costumes in there.
We unlocked it when we had like 2 or something, so we didn't have anything too crazy.
Yeah, I played the entire. Once I got it, I played as the main character from Bloodborne the entire time.
Amazing, perfect.
It's pretty good. Also, the animation for the Bloodborne character is pretty fantastic because you walk and punch the Bloodborne bot and he parries you with the gun. Because there was like in that, it was like you stun with the gun and then go, and it like does the whole thing, and Astrobot like gets stunned and then he like whips out his switchblade thing. It's pretty fucking
clever. It's
clever.
great attention to detail.
Yeah.
It's really impressive.
But yeah, so you unlock all of these facilities, and then there's a final puzzle board, and it's the largest one in the game. And once you get all of the puzzle pieces in the game, it unlocks, drum roll, the final face button level. And my God,
You beat it.
yeah, I did.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Last time I talked to you, not.
I finished it, yes. I just couldn't, I couldn't save I couldn't, in good conscience, just, quit and be done.
I had a feeling. When you told me, you're like, I'm done. I'm not doing it. And then I was like, I got it.
But it's really hard. It's really fucking hard. It's the longest one by a long shot. You still only have, there's no checkpoints. You gotta do it perfectly. It implements, a bunch of the things that you've seen in previous levels, so it's all one big one. It is brutal, dude. It is fucking brutal, and I don't know, I'm of two minds about this because, yes, absolutely, I appreciate that there is, like we talked about in the last podcast, there's just, the level of difficulty in, the main levels is just not there. It's just not. But then you add these face button levels, and they are, some of them are easier than others, but there's some that I'm just I don't want to do this anymore. I'm so frustrated. I'm just going to bang my head against the wall over and over and over until I get it. And I think that a few of them, the mechanics are just not quite there. There's a couple of things that kind of eat at me about Astrobot. One, Astrobot is slow as fuck. He doesn't run very fast. So he just kind of trots along, which can be frustrating. And the camera is not snappy enough in certain situations. There's one where, I don't know if you ran into the mechanic where you pick up the water thing that sprays water, and if with lava in particular, you create platforms by cooling the lava that you can then walk on. I don't know if you ran into that in the main game yet. There's levels that
I don't think so.
that you, and it's fine in the main levels, but there is a face button challenge that requires you to use one of those water cannons, and there's all these obstacles that you kind of have to navigate through, and I really struggled with that one to a pretty high degree because the camera's not fast enough, and you got to kind of switch the camera and kind of navigate this really kind of hard obstacle course while creating platforms in front of you with the water cannon that disappear after a certain amount of time. So it just I got really frustrated with those two. In a way that I haven't got frustrated with a game in a while. So I don't know. I appreciate that they're there. If I had it all over to do again, I wouldn't have messed with them as much as I did and just accept that I think that it is I'm very high on the game. I don't want to paint the picture that it ruined the experience for me. But and probably people out there are you just need to get better, and it's I finished them, you motherfuckers, but it just took me longer than I wanted them to.
Yeah, I don't know they can ruin the experience. It's because it's not the experience. They're there for the people
supplement
that want more. And I will unless something changed, eventually I will check back because it seems like we are going to do it all. And slowly give me another 2 months, maybe by the end of the year. I kind of suspect that I will pretty much 100% the game.
Yeah.
And I can come in and say, well, here's how I felt about it. And so you get to it, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Like, I think that there was, like, that was the frustrating thing. Like, I'm certainly not the best video game player to play the video games, but, you know, I've been doing this a long fucking time, so there are very few things in gaming that I'm like, I just throw my hands up in the air and say, I'm done, I can't do it, right? Especially if, like, it's one thing if the game is just not there, and then it also is frustrating on certain levels, and then I will throw my hands up in the air. But if it's a sound game that has sound mechanics, I will typically just keep on going and keep on going. This one in particular, I just think it just needs, the mechanics that are present need to be a little bit sharper for the steep difficulty increase for these face levels.
And I think if that is the deal, that's a pretty fair criticism. If the game gets in the way, then it's like, well, you're asking me to do something that the game mechanics are in the way. They're causing a problem.
Yeah, so there's that, but very satisfying ending to this game, I'll say. The end of this fucking game, the main story.
Unveils the PS6 shows.
No, it does not, but it does some crazy shit, dude. It's like a Sony fanboy fever fucking dream. At the end of this game, where you're like, I cannot believe that this is a thing that's happening right now. I don't know what I'm witnessing. Completely flips the gameplay that you've been doing up to that point on its head, and I think it's brilliant. Like, the end of this game is incredible, dude.
How many worlds are there?
How many worlds?
Like the little galaxies.
There are 5, I think. 5 or 6.
I'm in 4. I'm like halfway through 4. Through the little lizard guy. We're in the lizard guy.
The chameleon. So you have one more after that.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're pretty close.
They're getting harder. My daughter's playing a little less and less. We'll like get to a checkpoint and then she'll like play a bunch.
This also is a game that really kind of drives home, which Sony I think just kind of failed to do by and large with some of their first-party titles. Really accentuates the kind of cool features that the DualSense has, right? That controller is very neat when utilized correctly.
When it uses the features.
Yeah, like when someone actually utilizes some of the rumble features in that, it is a very cool feeling to kind of have some sort of like force feedback of like walking on different materials, right? That's very cool. Like it's very, very neat the way that it's implemented, and I think it works really well. And then also the tension on the triggers, they use that and a bunch of different. It's great.
Like that shit when it showed up in, like I'll never play Returnal on my controller again, but the way they use their secondary attacks in that game with those triggers, you're like, wow, this really feels good. I wish I was good with the controller.
The fucking active reload in Returnal with the fucking tension on the triggers. Oh my god,
Really
fucking incredible. That's like the other game that you can highlight that utilizes it. But like I can't think of any of the other first-party Sony games that.
I don't think Odyssey did.
Odyssey.
Shit in my brain. No.
Are you having an anthem moment here? Okay.
Basically.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
What were you?
Nothing.
Oh, okay.
Just
Gotcha.
move on.
Okay. Yeah, I just think that they've got a cool piece of tech there, but it's not utilized in any tangible ways in most of the games. Like God of War or the newest what was that? What the fuck? Guerrilla Games. Why am I drawing a blank on the name? You have infected me with your brain rot. Are we gonna get it?
Forbidden West, whatever.
Yes. I want to say No Man's Sky. Let's just move on. But yeah, it's a good game, a fantastic game, and I definitely want to knock it. Horizon, thank you. I definitely don't want to knock it. I was just supremely impressed with the inclusion of so many like rare, like kind of niche characters that they kind of roll out. There are some notable exceptions and like exclusions where you're like, that's weird that
Square's not in there, right?
Square's not in there, yeah. And apparently it was at one point, and there was like disputes about their IP, and so that's a problem.
Final Fantasy VII Cloud should be in there.
Yeah, 100%. Yes, yeah, definitely. But by and large, there's a lot of fan service, and the game's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you end up getting the platinum, or are you done?
No, I didn't get the platinum because there are like certain trophies that require you to do like very specific things, like very easy things. Yeah, I don't care enough. So.
All right, well that's gonna do it. That's this game Gamescast 143. If you're enjoying, if you are listening to the show, if you're watching the show, you should probably come and join the Discord, and you should be able to find that in the show notes or on the profile page on YouTube. All that should work out. That's gonna do it, guys. That's Gamescast 143. Thank you.